San Antonio, the 3-point favorite at Orlando, the home opener in Camping World Stadium for Terrell Buckley's Guardians. We're going to be sort of quick on this one because we do have a game to get to tonight. Also, these teams are 7 and 8 in our power poll, and to me, there's a little bit of a drop off from 6. I think these teams are a couple years away from competing. I hope they prove me wrong though, because I was a little bummed when I saw this game is going to be ESPN. It's the only game of the weekend that gets on the worldwide leader as far as the main channel. We have tonight's game on FX. We have Saturday's game on FX, and what I think is the game of the week, Arlington and Houston, shoved to ESPN2 on Sunday night. So huge pressure for the Brahmas and the Guardians to deliver. I'm sure the league does their best to come up with these time slots, but sometimes it's just an unworkable situation. Quick note, the San Antonio Vice President of Business and Event Ops, Mike Sheehan, canned this week, just given the boot. Some reports said he was the GM. That is not correct. XFL Twitter did a great job hopping on those false reports again. Big J journalism trying to interfere with our XFL. Can't have it. Some reports, again, saying he was the GM. We know that's not how it's handled. The XFL has a director of player personnel for each of the 8 teams. They work with the head coach and the staff to make all the personnel decisions. This person was in business and event operations. Totally different thing. And this firing was a personal matter. Jeff Altstatter, the VP of comms for the league in HQ, making sure everybody knows this is not going to affect the league's plans for San Antonio. They are still bringing the XFL championship game there on May 13th. Enough about that. San Antonio offense against the Orlando defense. We said Monday, one of the main issues with that Brahmas offense, settling for field goals. You got to punch it in the end zone. They kicked 3 of them inside the 30. Jamie Elizondo goes out and he gets his guy this week. Dan Williams, welcome back to the XFL. Remember those Tampa Bay Vipers under Elizondo featured Williams as their wide receiver 1. And I'll admit, I watched every second of that season. I had no idea why Williams wasn't drafted. On draft day, I was looking around. Where's Dan Williams? Is he playing in the CFL? What's he doing? He should be in the XFL again. 6'3", 200 pounds, 7th-year pro out of Jackson State. Played everywhere, NFL, CFL, AAF, anywhere you can imagine. Williams was in it. Huge target in the red zone. And I think having Hines Ward as his head ball coach, that's going to do Dan Williams wonders. So watch for him. Big target in the red zone. You saw what Houston's wide receivers was able to do to Orlando, right? I don't necessarily trust Jamie Elizondo's pass game yet, but it's still a key pickup for the Brahmas. I trust A.J. Smith's pass game a little bit more than I do San Antonio, but Dan Williams should help him out there. I think Jack Cohn will have the opportunity to show what he has a little bit more than he did against that tough St. Louis secondary. 20 points is going to be enough to win here. That may foreshadow what my best bet's going to be later, but you're not going to have to score a lot. Kalen Ballage, clearly the workhorse here. You're going to see a heavy dose of him. I would like to see more Jaquez Patrick. He was hyped up coming into the league. I think we should see a little bit of a 2-headed monster. I think Ballage was maybe a little overworked in week 1, got 24 carries. Landon Akers, another one. He led the Brahmas in targets. You're going to see some of him. There was definitely some frustration from Orlando's defensive staff and coordinator Tony Carter last week. Again, I don't think San Antonio will or has to score 30 plus, but to me, Jack Cohn is on the same level as Brandon Silvers. So both quarterbacks going against Orlando, I don't think there's any advantage there. I think Cohn is more than capable. He just doesn't have the weapons they did in Houston. But again, Dan Williams has a chance to emerge. Jalen Tolliver, you saw Fred Brown score a touchdown. Some good tight ends in San Antonio. Flip it to the other side of the ball. What do we have here with the Orlando O going against Jim Herman's San Antonio D? Well, when you look at the league, every position group across all 8 teams, Orlando's offensive line, unfortunately, may be the worst. Just not good against Houston. Trent Harris ate them alive up front. I was very critical of Paxton Lynch back on Monday's show. I rewatched the tape, and I got to say, I don't really think it's all on him. His O-line made it impossible for him to have any time. He took 4 sacks. They almost lost about 40 yards on those sacks. We talked about Orlando at 9-1 potentially being that dark horse candidate to shock some teams. In fact, after their loss, they're now at 15-1 to win that XFL title. So almost doubling after just one loss. They went up 6-0 on Saturday night, and that was their chance to capitalize. And since they didn't, I see him as a 1 or 2 win team. I think Dean Blandino completely missed that call, by the way. That was an interception, but again, it didn't matter because it was called a touchdown. Orlando had a chance there to really turn the whole momentum around on what the experts expected them to do this season. But John Maine Martin, got to give it to him. Their tailback, he ran hard, and this jumped off the paper at me. It may have been because they trailed all night and they had to sling it around. Orlando actually led the XFL in offensive yards and yards per play in week 1. They led in yards per rush as well. I would have never known that watching this game. So you have to look deeper sometimes. The spreadsheet by Isaiah Sarah on Twitter, shout out him for that. He's given us a lot more metrics than the XFL website is. Thank you, Isaiah. So with those metrics, not all is terrible for Robert Ford. I'm sure he wasn't still happy with the way his team performed. So who do we get? Paxton Lynch, Quentin Dormady, or DeAndre Francois? Or do we see a combination of all of them? That will be interesting to see. The bad news for Orlando's offensive line, Mike Scott. Not of Dunder Mifflin, of the San Antonio Brahmas. And he's going to be a force up front. I guess, yeah, every now and then I get a little giggle out of Zook. You probably didn't hear that because it's mic's off. But, it was a cough. Never mind. See, I tell terrible jokes. Mike Scott, I make player songs. Maybe Michael Scott is one. Early candidate for a player song for XFL. Could be interesting. So, I don't know. This game's kind of a mess. Who even picking here? What do you have? You have the San Antonio front is probably a factor. I'm going Brahmas. They couldn't find the end zone last week, just kept settling for field goals. We're going to get to our best bets later, but I think you guys know how I feel on this sloppy total of 38.5. I was shocked it was higher than the last 2 games we just talked about, but I'm going to go Brahmas on the road. What you got, Zook?
I also got the Brahmas.
San Antonio. Now, let me ask you, do you think they're as bad as I think they are? Like, do you think that they have no chance of competing? Like, I think they're a 3-win bad.
Who's that?
San Antonio. Or do they get themselves in the mix for a play? I think this week they could build their confidence if they play this the right way. Or they could lose.
I think they could squeak just shy of 500, but
okay.
I think Orlando's that bad.
Yeah.
That it's kind of a no-brain pick.
Does Orlando win a game this year?
I think they definitely win a game.
This is their best shot, I think. Early in the season, you might catch San Antonio sleeping. We both know as the year goes on, the experienced coaches are going to take over and these teams are going to get a lot better. And there's not going to be a lot of opportunities, especially for Orlando playing in the South Division with Arlington and Houston.
Sure.
It's going to be tough. So if the Guardians are going to win one, this is going to be the week, but I still like San Antonio. Mikey, do you make it a clean sweep tonight? The San Antonio Brahmas and the Orlando Guardians. Mikey Manziel. The pick is a mystery. It's San Antonio. So we did that a couple times last week. It didn't end up hurting us. So we did it with Houston. We did it with St. Louis. They both won. So maybe the jinx is not as bad as I think it is.